Welcome to Channel 18 News. I'm Jim Rogers. Silver Springs police arrested Michael Shane McCormick, age 27, of Dyke, for burglary of a habitation. The home was located on Martin Luther King Drive in Silver Springs. The burglary occurred sometime on August 13th or 14th. The resident was not at home at the time of the burglary. When McCormick gained entry into the residence, he took keys and money. He also left personal items behind that identified him as the suspect in the case, according to Silver Springs criminal investigator David Gilmore. Gilmore stated that at the time of the arrest, McCormick, who was at work in the 1300 block of Mockingbird Lane, had some of the stolen items in his pocket. Those items included a Dallas Cowboy lanyard with numerous keys and accessories. McCormick is in Hopkins County Jail, charged with burglary of a habitation, a felony too, and is being held on a $50,000 bond. Special Crimes Unit activated an arrest team that included deputies, patrol officers, and criminal investigators from both Hopkins County Sheriff's Office and the Silver Springs Police Department. They were activated to assist in the arrest of David Carl Harvey, age 41, of Silver Springs. Harvey was arrested at his residence on Georgia Street. The arrest team was activated due to information about weapons at the residence and the possibility of Harvey fleeing. Harvey was aware of a warrant issued for his arrest. Harvey did attempt to flee when officers arrived, and some of the officers had entered the residence. However, he lay down at the entry door of the home when it became apparent other officers were present outside the residence. Harvey is in Hopkins County Jail, charged with violation of probation, manufacture, delivery, controlled substance penalty group 1, more than 1 gram but less than 4 grams, and for assault causes bodily injury. He's being held with bond denied on the felony charges.
The congregation of the Arbela Road Church of Christ invites you to a special weekend at their church. Saturday, September 8th at 6 p.m., a mental health and wellness seminar. And on Sunday, September 9th, the annual Fall Fellowship that starts during the morning worship time. We'll find out more from pastoring minister Philandris Bell.
Mr. Israel is going to be one of our speakers, and he's known to be a counselor in the city of Silver Springs. And he's going to be addressing some of these issues. And we're hopeful that people will first understand that maintaining a relationship with God is the most important thing we can do. And once we establish that relationship with God, even though it's difficult for many of us to understand, it helps us to understand the various situations that we face in life, because it brings us stability. And where there's no spiritual stability, it adds to the difficulties we have of dealing with many other things we have to deal with.
Well, of course, he is called a mighty counselor, and he knows the human mind better than any trained counselor could know it.
If we would only understand that. The Bible teaches us, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God. And we have to understand that that is not speaking of earthly wisdom. We go to schools and educate ourselves through book learning, but God has a book that's better than any book, and that's the Bible. And if we would allow ourselves to approach it with an open mind and a constructive mind, then we would understand it helps us to make our lives better. So often, people look for perfection. God never commanded us. He knows that we're not perfect, but He has given us the instructions that will enable us to work toward the perfection He desires to see in us. It's not what other people see, it's what God sees in us. Now, we want to be a good influence to other people, but when we do what God wants us to do to the best of our ability, we're going to maintain that position in life where, even though we might not know it, we are influencing people in some way or another. I was telling someone the other day, anyone you come in contact with, if you're in their presence within a few minutes, and you have a slight bit of conversation with them, in some way or another, you have influenced that person. But the best influence we can give is to allow Jesus Christ to radiate through our spirits. And sometimes we find that difficult to do because we're faced with so many of these mental challenges that affects us in so many different ways.
The first day is Saturday, September 8th of your special weekend out at Arbela Road Church of Christ. And the one that you're referring to, starting at 6 p.m., called Care for Your Mind, with Israel Lewis as the guest speaker. So is this open to the public?
This is open to the public, most definitely open to the public. The Bible says, teaches us, faith without works is dead. And we have so many things that the churches need to do to address the ills of our community, or for lack of a better word, I probably could have chosen something else. But there's so many things that our communities face, and ministers such as myself should take the lead in trying to help people deal with the things that they're having to deal with in their lives. And we're hosting this event with the hopes that people will come, and prayerfully that people will come, and that they will find the answers to many of the solutions or answers to many of the problems that they're having to deal with in life, and even possibly find some solutions, because I'm sure Mr. Israel will make himself available in some ways to conversate or work with people beyond this venue. So we're really hoping that people will come out in large number. It's hosted at the Arbela Road Church of Christ, but we have to start someplace. I've started many other things in this community, and when the community supports an effort, you might say, well, I'm not being affected by this, but it could be someone in your family. It could be someone on your job. So we have to look beyond ourselves and see the need of other people. And when we get beyond ourselves and say, well, I'm going to attend this because I might learn something that will benefit somebody else. And that's what we're wanting to encourage people to do. Come and see what you can learn. Even though it might not affect you directly, it could eventually affect you indirectly.
I'd say there's probably no one out there listening who doesn't have somebody on their mind and heart in their family or a circle of friends that could use this. Some of the pointers here from the Health and Wellness Seminar. And I know, there's statistics that are kept on mental health cases across our country or in smaller regions.
Well, when we look at the statistical aspect of it, we don't know the statistical numbers of Sulphur Springs in general, but when we look at the nation as a whole, America has 60 million Americans have mental illness in a given year. 60 million Americans in a given year. Now, when we look at the younger generation, our children, mental illness affects, first of all, the adults. Mental illness affects 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 5 children. I would consider those to be very high statistics, and something that we need to give attention to. Now, there are many things I could say in lieu of that question that was just asked, but I will sum up and say, look at the varied situations that we face in our society. People do many things in life because there are some underlying factors they do not have the ability to address. We can't change the world, but we can assist people if they will open up in the areas where God gives us the ability to assist them in ways that we can.
I would ask this question. Why do you think, as you mentioned, 60 million Americans, why do you think so many people suffer from mental health issues?
It goes back to that hidden aspect. Sometimes personally, allow me to use myself as an example. I might be dealing with the problem, and rather than making that problem known to people I can trust and have confidence in, I hold it within myself. And when we hold things in and we have no communication with God about it, we become frustrated, we become discouraged, we become despondent, and all of those things encroach upon our mental abilities and our mental awareness. And it brings about depression, anxiety, and all of these things that affect us psychologically. And I think that, I'm hoping that's an answer to your question. I think that's why our society, the numbers are high, is because we hide until we get to a point we explode, and that's the dangerous part. If we will go ahead and seek help, and we might talk about that later, but if we would go ahead and admit, one of the biggest things or hardest things to do is to admit. I was in a Bible class last night, and I gave an illustration. In order for a person to learn, you have to first admit you don't know, and you don't know. You want to hide as if I expose it, I'm saying, well, I'm ignorant. Well, ignorant is not a word. It can be a hurtful word if used improperly, but all of us are ignorant to something. I'm ignorant to what I don't know. But if I open my mind to learning, then I can come to a better understanding of those things that I need to know. So we need to be careful about the use of the word ignorance, but yet we have to admit, there are things I need to learn. And being mentally prepared and things that will help me with my health issues, when those opportunities are made available, then I think we should avail ourselves to the opportunity.
The Mental Health and Wellness Seminar coming up on Saturday, September 8th, and 6 p.m. is the start time on that, welcomes you in. Everyone would come with something different, something hidden, maybe, something belonging to someone else, something that makes them angry, that they may not have really questioned what the root of that is, but there's help available. So in our talk today, which is all too brief, what is the takeaway that you hope people will take with them to help them on their life journey?
Well, I don't want to be redundant, but the first thing I want to say, and I don't speak this as a man of perfection, but I do believe that maintaining a relationship with God is crucial. A person has to decide that individually. That's the first takeaway. Do I have a relationship with God? Secondly, that we all recognize that we're dependent on others that we can confidently confide in. God made us this way. We need each other, whether we admit it or not, because there are things that we are individually confronted with that you might be able to help me with. So that would be another takeaway. And then thirdly, we want to encourage people to be resourceful in seeking the help they need. There, as you said a moment ago, there's much help out there, but we have to just be resourceful. Admit first, and then be resourceful, and say, even if it's to ourselves, I have a problem. I'm going to seek the resources that will help me with this problem. And now, we haven't gone into a lot of details to list a lot of problems, but we know that individually and as a society, we have a lot of problems that we need to address.
Well, that's what the point of the special weekend is. And also, on the very next day, September 9th, your annual fall fellowship out at your church, which is our Bailey Road Church of Christ. This world needs a revival.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. We have a very inspiring speaker coming on Sunday. He will be with us all day. And, that's the theme of the basis of our Sunday event, is to address the needs of having a revival. And that revival starts with us individually, listening to God, receiving God's word, and appreciating what God has to say to us.
Thank you, Pastor Bell, for coming in today.
Thank you for inviting us.
We'll continue to remind people about the September 8th and 9th offerings there at our Baylor Road Church of Christ.
Thank you.
And here's Don Julian with sports.
Last Saturday, the Wildcats and Lady Cats cross-country teams had a 3-mile team time trial run at Coleman Park to determine the top 7 runners for each team for the season-opening Commerce Tigers Invitational at Commerce High School this Saturday. I talked with cross-country coach Ross Hicks about who ran well last weekend.
We just had our team out there and all the parents out there, and we just got out in a race, a simulated race, and ran hard. I thought the kids really were focused, and they treated it like a race, because it was to see who was going to be on the varsity team for the first week. So on the girls' side, we had some strong performances. We had a couple not there because of we have volleyball and a couple of things, but I thought they did really well. They Caitlin Farrell was the top runner for us at the race, followed by Ashley Noe and Landry McKinney, and also we had some really good performances. I thought that they gave a really good effort for that first meet.
Oh, the boys, they surprised you?
Yes, and they did in a way and did in another way. Landon Thornton, he ran very well. He ran one of the better times that I've seen on that course, and there's been some of our local guys, myself and Everett Wilder, when we were kind of in our prime, and he's running those times that are right there with us when we were even in college, and so he ran really well. And then we had a group about 40 seconds behind him of Christian Palomino, Nabian Ramirez, and Eli Sellers. They were right there together, and then following them, we have another group about 40 seconds behind them of some guys who like to close that gap. So we have 4 runners that ran really well, and then we have a little gap, but I think they're younger and they're hungry, and so they'll hopefully move into those spots.
All right. And you're looking forward to it. I know, always fun to get that first one in there.
Yes, I'm very excited. I've told the kids I'm excited for them. I'm ready to see what their summer training has done. We got a little taste of it, but it even though they raced hard, I expect times to get faster. As you add in competition, you add in that new element of other teams, that adrenaline really kicks in, and some of the best. That's when we start seeing those times and how much our summer training has
Earlier this week, a new Wildcats defensive coordinator, Alex Guerrera, discussed his expectations for the Wildcats defense this season. He said they will need to play fast and play with a lot of heart and emotion. Coach Guerrera said that he wants a very chaotic defense, but one that also plays under control. He said he wants guys who go at it with passion and emotion, but then turn it off when the whistle blows to focus and get ready for the next play. Coach Guerrera said the bottom line is that players are going to have to give second and third effort. He said other teams will probably be bigger than the Wildcats, but he added the Wildcats must play faster and quicker. Coach Guerrera said his players may be smaller, but they must be strong, and he said that's where the off-season programs are so important. Coach Guerrera said that he knows there will be a lot of sharing of players with offense. He said it is important for his defense to be 2 and 3 deep at positions for that reason, and he also said it is on the coaches to make sure that they don't send a tired kid out on the field. Well, this is the last in a series on Wildcats coaches and their players. And today we feature offensive line coach Jeremy Offutt and the Wildcats offensive line. Offutt is in his 7th year coaching Wildcats varsity offensive linemen. Coach Offutt has lost over 40 pounds in recent months. He is a former North Lamar offensive lineman who played in college at Oklahoma State. Coach Offutt was also briefly with the Detroit Lions. He coached at Northwest Louisiana before coming to Sulphur Springs. Concerning this year's offensive line, Coach Offutt said his current group has a lot of experience in some players, but inexperience in others. He said he has got some size. He's got 4 300-pounders and also some good athletes. Coach Offutt said they are working hard to improve. Out of 9 linemen, 6 are seniors. They are Ethan Rogers, Hayden Daniels, Jacob Janitis, Charlie Maddox, Hunter Salvarino, and Philip Rader. His juniors are Giovanni Pisano, Chandler Leo, and Ryan Hammonds. Rogers, at 6'3" and 300 pounds, is in his 3rd year on the varsity. He was all district as a guard last year. Rogers has also played some tackle earlier in his high school career. He's the team's starting center this year. Coach Offutt called 6'4", 320-pound Daniels a Swiss Army knife kind of guy, since he can play all 5 positions along the line. And Coach Offutt said 6'3", 330-pound Jacob Janitis is one of his most physical linemen. The 2nd-year varsity player had to overcome a very serious hand injury that threatened his playing career. Speaking of that, 6'2", 240-pound right tackle Maddox is also back after a serious injury right before the start of last season that threatened his football career. But Coach Offutt said watching film of Maddox this year, it appeared that he was never out. 5'10", 220-pound left guard Salvarino is a converted center. And Coach Offutt said 6'3", 230-pound Philip Rader played on the JV last year and is improving all the time. Pisano is at 5'10" and 250 pounds. He's a left guard. Leo, at 6 foot and 240 pounds, is athletic and can play several positions, according to Coach Offutt. And he said 6'3", 310-pound Hammonds is physical and has played his way onto the varsity after being on the JV last season. Coach Offutt said offensive lines are almost always close-knit, and his group is that way this year. They thrive as a group since they don't generate stats or get individual acclaim, according to Coach Offutt. And finally, he says they are a tighter brotherhood than any other position group on the team.
Thanks for watching Channel 18 News. Have a great evening.